Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to a slightly shorter edition of the Get Your Geek On podcast this week, minus Anthony, who is out doing some crazy work stuff. It's the busy season for him this year. So we're going to jump right in. As always, we're your host, Charles KIWACZ.
Robert Dokes.
And huge revelations, folks. Savitar's identity was revealed. We're not even going to jump the gun here. Let's get into it. Savitar was revealed to be future Barry, as we called weeks upon weeks ago. And the big revelation, and it's a huge change from the comics. So first of all, I want to start there because this is kind of a breaking moment for the show because regardless of what they did with Zoom, I mean, in the comics, Zoom wore the Reverse Flash outfit. All they did was put him in a different suit. This is a completely, like, you took a character from the comics and you just basically took him in name only and then just completely scrapped his origin and stuff like that and did it. So, I mean, what do you think this says for the future of the show in that direction where now they're not afraid to create their own mythology?
Well, and I think that's a good thing for the show because it's like, okay, what are you going to, where do you go from here? And I think they've called it from the beginning of the season, even when we were talking about earlier, you mentioned Jay Garrick. Reverse Flash mentioned in the first episode, you're the villain now.
Who's
Flash.
the villain now,
Who's
Flash?
the villain now, Flash?
So, like, it's one of those moments where it's like there was no reveals all season long, but the moment you hear that, you go back and you're like, oh, they really kind of told us like
they've
four
been dropping
times.
hints the entire time.
Because he says, I'm the future Flash twice. Jay Garrick says that he was the first man ever granted speed. Reverse Flash has the who's the villain. I mean, there's the little hints there. But I loved that whole showdown. When he's figuring it out, he's like, you remember. And you hear me, like I recorded my reaction for YouTube, and I call it like 2 seconds, literally the dialogue, like 2 seconds before. I'm like, oh my God, he lived it. That's why he remembers everything.
Yeah.
And it also creates that Looper type paradox now going forward where how does Barry try to come up with any plan to stop himself because the future Barry will automatically remember it? And then it asks a million more questions. Is this a straight up future Barry? Is it an alternate Earth Barry? Is it a time remnant Barry? Like,
I'm thinking it's a time remnant Barry because there's something about the fact of the matter is he has to wear that suit. He cannot be out of that suit.
Yeah, clearly he can't heal anymore either.
And so there's something up with that. Something I'm thinking it has to do with his fight with one of the remnants he created last year while fighting not Zoom. Yeah, Zoom.
You know who I honestly just kind of came to me right now that I think they might actually have to turn to at some point in the season finale? What if they have to get Black Flash to help?
That might be. Well, not to jump the gun, but if you saw the preview for next week's episode, it looks like they're going to zap Barry's memory.
Yeah.
So they can't remember.
It's going to be fun to see that episode take on it. But I mean, we got 3 episodes left, and I'm glued into seeing what's going to happen. I mean, I have no doubt that the season is going to end with Barry going into the Speed Force. We've seen the finale picks and everything else like that. Shows him saying goodbye to everybody and walking off with his mom. Mm-hmm. His mom's not alive in any timeline that we know of, and every time he's seen the Speed Force, it takes the form of his mom at some point. So I have the feeling that he makes some sort of deal. That's what I'm thinking. Black Flash. I'm thinking he make a deal to be the new Black Flash because at certain points in the comics, Barry Allen has been the Black Flash.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's interesting to see what they're going to do with that. But I think he's definitely going to have to team up with a few different people.
Well, Captain Cold, we know that Wentworth Miller is coming back in, I think, 2 episodes.
No, it's next week.
Next week. Okay, he's coming back next week, and he's the evil version of the super evil version of Captain Cold, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what happens because the show has me fully invested.
It's just the question of the why now. It's like all season long it was who is Savitar, and now that you know, it's just like why? What would make Barry become his own villain? What would make him kill the love of his life and everything else like that? But looking back, you see all the hints, but I just want to know the why. I'm thinking that it's not going to be just as simple as, it's a future Barry and something. I think it's kind of like a Reverse Flash type thing where future Barry needs to break this version of Barry in order for himself to be creator. So I think that there's something like that where he has to do this stuff in order to ensure that this version of him actually ends up existing.
Yeah.
You know how Reverse Flash goes back in time, gets stuck, loses his power, so then he has to make sure Barry becomes the Flash so that Barry can get it fast enough to help him get home. That type of thing. I think he has to break Barry in order to make sure that this version of him continues. But I don't know, man. They got 3 episodes left, so they're going to have to jam a lot in here. But it's definitely a huge reveal. I loved seeing it, and I just can't wait to see the explanation now of why and what they're going to do about it. But and the introduction of the scientist, what are you thinking about that, Tracy Brand?
Well, it's nice. I enjoy that because now they're trying to, not to say that they don't know about the Speed Force, but they're trying to put, outside of Team Flash, somebody's studying extra-dimensional energy. And so maybe we're going to,
You're setting up the seeds for DeVoe for next season. They're setting up the season for the Thinker.
Yeah.
Like the fact that other people are starting to learn about the Speed Force, because DeVoe is one of his best enemies in the comics.
So you have people who are, starting to think, well, I mean, even outside, they've developed the multiverse. Now they're trying to develop the Speed Force. The Speed Force has been just as much of a character this season, especially with the development of Wally J. Garrick, Barry, Jesse Quick, all the speeches that we've seen on the Flash this season. The Speed Force has played a key role in their development. And so even for Barry, learning about Barry, we're going to find out what his reasoning was when they trapped him in the Speed Force. Which makes that Speed Force episode even more eerie.
Yeah. Because the Speed Force is like, it exists outside of time as well, which is really weird.
But to answer the question, I think it's good to have something, somebody else outside of Team Flash start explaining things.
Absolutely. Now, just wrapping things up here before we get too deep into our next subject here, I really, really hope that they just answer all these questions. I don't want any ridiculous plot holes because if you're going to have your hero become the villain, you need to explain the hell out of that. I need to know every decision I need to know the step of the way.
Well, I think they hit it at it at the end of season 1, where we see Barry in jail. We'll find out. Remember that? So we'll find out. We see Caitlin become Killer Frost. Which
I don't think is going to change anytime soon. And I loved the Iceman. Yeah. People were complaining about that, and I even wrote about the funny part is the poor citizens that are being crushed by the falling ice that's just melting. Yeah. But I loved the special. It looked awesome to see her gliding like that.
I mean, everybody thinks the Iceman. Killer Frost has also been able to do this in the comics, so.
I loved it. Seeing it, and the CGI of it was done really well, so it looked really cool.
It looked like also it was a called throwback to the Louise Lincoln version of Killer Frost.
Absolutely. But so that's going to wrap things up. Not much happening on Supergirl this week. Obviously, Legends is over, and we don't give a damn about Arrow. So moving on, one thing that we do want to state here is we are getting into our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review, and this review does contain spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, turn away now. That's all you're going to get from this week's Get Your Geek On. It's just the Savitar reveal. So we're going deep into Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I have the documents right here. And what'd you think, Robert? It was your first 4D movie, so I took Robert, my girlfriend's sister. There was a group of 6 of us that all went to see Guardians of the Galaxy in 4D, which if those of you don't know, your seats move, you get hit with air, water, smell. It's a much more immersive movie experience.
Yeah, it was certainly immersive.
So, Robert, your first 4D movie.
First 4D movie. It took me a while to get used to because your senses get kind of played with, especially
equilibrium.
Your equilibrium gets really, really messed with because it's like when you go into the theater, it's kind of like roller coaster chairs. They kind of sit you in, and you're like, they don't strap you in, but you're like, this kind of feels like a roller coaster, and it moves around. So if anybody that's been to a museum of science or anything place like that, it's kind of one of those kind of things. But I enjoyed it. It took me a while to get used to it, but once I got used to it, particularly for me, I guess when the crashes and things happen, the shaking, and then the mist was probably the more interesting part.
I love it. With a space movie like this, all the traveling and crashing stuff like that makes it great for the scenes. But for me, anything with Yondu's arrow was awesome because it would just pelt you you were getting hit 600 times, which I love. But I mean, 4D is great. There's only about 9 or 10 theaters in the country that have it. So if you're lucky enough to be near a 4D theater, I highly recommend checking it out. Next movie we're definitely doing that is Transformers. Should be fun. But getting into the movie itself here. Now, I love this movie overall. I just want to state that, going into this. I think this was a great movie. It was more of a comedy than Marvel's ever made before. But I don't think that it quite lived up to the hype of the first one.
No, it didn't. It's the first one was very hard to come. There's no way you can do that. That was
a left that
was out of left. Well, I'm going to use this from the title of my biography in my later life when I write my memoirs is going to be from the left side of the universe. So that's when you talk about that movie came out from the left side of the universe and just struck everybody, saying that Marvel can make films. They didn't go so formulaic. It could be a little more raunchier. It could be a little more crass than the other films. And I think I'm glad that they kept that particular aspects of the movie in there because this Guardians of the Galaxy continues to be that film that has great character development, even more so.
I feel like this was Yondu's movie.
It was Yondu's movie, but even outside of this, so we see Yondu's character develop. We see Peter Quill's character develop, Gamora, Nebula.
Nebula was great development.
Yeah.
Like you basically, it reshapes your entire perception of Nebula. You always thought of Nebula as just like this hard, crazy chick that's trying to kill
That was
her
one of the
sister.
knocks on the first film because you have Karen Gilliam, a really great.
Who we can't wait to meet at Boston.
Yeah, like Karen Gilliam, who's a great actress. If you've never seen her on Doctor Who or anything like that, you've missed out. And so when it was nice when she was, it's nice when she brought her talents over to the United States and landed this role in this movie. But they underutilized her in that first film, and I think they made up for it in spades in this film, which was great. But the character development for her, Gamora, Drax, everybody had
Kraglin, Sean Gunn's character.
So they developed a very good base, and even more so. And with Civil War coming out last year, that was the deepest that you had ever seen the Tony Stark character, the Captain America character, the biggest character development you ever seen outside of Winter Soldier for these guys. Outside of this, it's pretty much been cookie cutter stuff. This movie series for these two for the first and the second Guardians, continue to do really great character development. Not necessarily a throwaway villain, because even with Kurt Russell's character, spoilers, you hear his reasoning and you're like, that makes sense.
Well, one of the things that I haven't read any reviews touch on or anything else like that I really feel this movie was, I feel like this movie was kind of like the test kitchen version of Infinity War, because Infinity War is going to have so many characters to balance and so many different storylines to try to balance.
Yeah.
And when you look at what this movie really was, you have Star-Lord, Drax, and the whole regular team, Kraglin's whole storyline, Yondu's whole storyline, Nebula's whole storyline. Then the original Guardians get brought in with Sylvester Stallone and Ving Rhames and Michael Rosenbaum and
Miley Cyrus and Michelle Yeoh.
Then you have the whole Sovereign thing setting up Adam Warlock and everything else. So you have the multiple factions that are all like putting these pieces together and things like that, trying to see what's going to happen. And then you have Hela coming in, which is like, I can't believe no one's talking about that.
Well, yeah, see, this is the thing where if you got to the, there's other things that we'll talk about post-credits and trailer stuff, but when you see how this story developed, they did a better job, and I'm going to say this, better job of setting up future storylines than Age of Ultron did. And where Age of Ultron really got packed, and you can see why.
And that's not something, because this is such a internal storyline that just
you can see why you could see why Josh Whedon got really, really tense, because it was like they were throwing, somehow they managed in the 2 hours of this film to tell a lot of stories and set up other movies without making you feel that they did that. And I appreciated that. So you see Sylvester Stallone's character very early on. They bring up very early on, you're like, what's he doing? And then they show the other original Guardians.
But seeing that team assembled at the end was like, wow. That's a whole franchise.
That's a whole franchise. But they said, James Gunn has said they will play a role in later films. These are not throwaway characters. They're not just doing this for fan service. They will be a part of the other films. They also, they're setting up Adam Warlock, which
that is huge, because I think that confirms our theory that he's going to be the one that has to wield, because they're not doing Sentry and that stuff. We've talked about multiple times who can wield that second gauntlet.
Yeah,
and I think it's Adam Warlock, and I said to you right at the theater, I think that's going to be the spoiler for the Avengers sequel title, because we can't tell you the Infinity sequel title because it'll spoil Infinity, and I think it has something to do with Adam Warlock and the second gauntlet.
Yeah. Or it's probably going to be, I'm going to guarantee it's probably Adam. It's Infinity Watch. Because if you hear the word Infinity Watch, then you know it's going to be Adam Warlock.
Oh, man. But this movie, great fan service moments. The whole baby Groot was absolutely adorable. They're going to sell the crap out of that.
And I think that was if there was one thing that I didn't like, it was they oversold that character a little too much.
I really like his whole scene where he has to go get Yondu's fin, and he brings back all the stuff. When he brings back the thumb, and they just have that. Please tell me you have a freezer just full of severed thumbs. No, we don't.
No,
we're just not going to talk about this. I was like, please tell me on the Blu-ray there's going to be a deleted scene of a little Groot just going straight Manson on somebody while they're sleeping. But that scene was absolutely incredible. The scene at the very beginning when they're fighting the giant creature, he's waving to Gamora, just dancing around, stuff like that. It was so beautiful to me. And then at the very end of the post-credit scene, you get to see him as a teenager.
It's like teenagers, your vines everywhere. And the fact that Star-Lord can understand him, it's like, I don't care. I don't want to trip over your roots.
It's just the way he's mocking him, it's beautiful. I can't wait to see the development of that character. But I thought the baby Groot was used pretty well.
So here's the other thing that I didn't realize, and people, I think you brought it up. that this happens 4 years before. So in the timeline from where we are, Civil War has just happened. So this is something recent. Guardians of the Galaxy has happened previously before the other storyline. And so my concern is when I think about this, given Thor: The Dark World, when they bring the ether to Benicio del Toro's character in the
Collector,
the Collector, where are we at when we get to Guardians of the Galaxy? And I kind of have to go look at Thor: The Dark World again and then see the original Guardians to see how that plays out. Because essentially what we're looking at is when we get to the Collector's part, he's like 1 down, 2 to go. 1 down, 4 to go. And so, if this happened, because this one happened, the Volume 2 happened 2 months after the original one.
Right.
The original Guardians, even though it's later. But, so we have one.
Well, the clip that we see of like Star-Lord talking to Teenage Groot, that's 3 years later.
3 years later?
It's 3 years after Volume 2 ends, yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'm interested to see one thing I will say is the soundtrack for this one wasn't as strong as the first movie, but I cannot get the song Brandy out of my head. It has been in my head for like the past week. What a good wife she would be. But first of all, the de-aged Kurt Russell, what they're doing with those characters now, man. That's the third time we've seen it now. They did it with Michael Douglas in Ant-Man, Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, and now Kurt Russell at the beginning of Guardians 2.
Yeah, but did you hear it? Like that wasn't a ton of makeup to make. Like it's not the. It was.
But I'm just saying, like that technology is just incredible. That's 1980s Kurt Russell.
Well, that was 1980s Kurt Russell, but. That was not. That was more practical effects and makeup than it was.
He's a good-looking dude, man. He's a good-looking dude.
Congratulations to him and Goldie Hawn. They just got
absolutely,
they
stars
got
well-deserved.
Stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame together.
I thought he was great as Ego. The one thing that I will say, and I almost wanted to like slam you at the screen and say it, like when he gets blown apart and like he's starting to reform and stuff like that. All I could think of was the movie The Lawnmower Man. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
The old school, and that's exactly what he looked like. Just the electrified skeleton.
I was hoping for a Big Trouble Little China moment where it's like, come on, just like to say it's like.
And can I say that like even the cheesiest moment in the movie to me was still incredible, like when he has the catch with his dad.
Yeah,
like it was so cheesy, like
it's like the light is on.
Dude, I cried like a pansy at Yondu's death. Like Yondu's sacrifice in this movie is absolutely incredible. You basically just see like the dynamic with him and Rocket. Is absolutely incredible. And basically,
that's another one.
They're the same person.
Rocket had a really great development. I really
think the supporting characters shined in this movie more than anything. Dude, James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, who we've met multiple times at Concept, plays Kraglin, the Guardian that who's
the Ravager,
a new member of the team. But like his character was absolutely incredible. But this, I really feel like it was about the side characters. Mantis and Drax's relationship was absolutely incredible. Like. I cared way more about that than I did about like anything with Star-Lord and Gamora.
Well, and I think that was like if we want to talk about relationships, it's one of those things where I still kind of feel it's forced.
Yeah.
Or at least in the way
it felt a lot less so in this movie though than it did in the first one.
No. I mean, like the first one, I didn't mind it because it was like he was playing. It was
They even made fun of it because it's like the sitcom where the guy and girl like each other.
It's
like
I have no idea what you're just like. Down. It's like I have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, it's exciting to see what they're doing with these backup characters. I didn't really care too much about the relationships. The one thing that I feel heartbroken for, though, is Peter Quill, because he's the one character in the Marvel Universe I feel the worst for now, because he has held every parental figure that he's ever loved in his hands while they died now.
Yeah.
Because his mother, Yondu, and then Ego. I mean, just absolutely heartbreaking. The way that he's losing his mind when Yondu starts, like, dying in space is absolutely heartbreaking. Tons of great moments in this movie. I feel it was about 20 minutes too long, though. I feel like
I felt it was right. I mean, I felt it was the right length. I would say probably parts where it dragged a little bit was when is the Kurt Russell explaining things to Peter on the planet. That kind of got a little long in the tooth.
It's so like ability, but like here's my grand plan, and then the plot twist. Like,
the plot twist is that Kurt Russell is the bad guy.
Very formulaic. Yeah.
I think that things like the Taserface character,
Taserface,
that was funny. I think the the sovereign, some of the issues where some of the things where they're saying here's the issue with the sovereign.
Can we talk about the fact that the sovereign ships are the Space Invader soundtrack?
Yeah.
That was so purposefully done. Like the sovereign don't actually fly in their ships; they remotely fly them. So they basically show this scene. It looks like a giant Dave and Buster's floor, where they're all in these machines, and when they're shooting, it's actually the space and like like absolutely hilarious. So that was like one of the most fun things to me. But here's my whole thing. I'm like, if that technology exists, why doesn't the Nova, like, why isn't everybody use that?
Well, it's the sovereign. So if the sovereign know how to do it, they are very precious of their batteries. So you think they're going to tell anybody how to remote pilot ships?
Yeah, I can see
and so
that.
that's not,
How much was the makeup must have sucked for those people? Because if there's anything I know about practical effects, they say that gold is the worst color to get painted in or anything like that.
Oh yeah, that had to have sucked for. Oh God, I forgot.
There's probably 200 easily extras in that room that are all done like, and they didn't have that, dude. Gold wigs, gold eyes, gold head to toe. Like, yeah, that's absolutely disgusting because it retains heat. Like, it messes with your skin really bad being painted gold. So I can't even imagine what that movie must have been like. Looked like Gamora. They changed her effects
they did.
a lot too. To make it a lot
I mean, like
her.
if you're Zoe Saldana, they're like she probably did what Jennifer Lawrence is. Like, yeah, we're not going full off on this.
Well, Jennifer Lawrence had to because she was allergic to the material they were using.
But I'm pretty sure she was like, and I think at the time when she started doing shooting, she was pregnant, and so.
I liked her character a lot more in this movie. I feel like they gave her, dude, she was smoking hot. I was sitting talking to Eve. I was like, I never thought I'd say I want to be with a green chick, but the red hair kills it for me in that movie. But great moments between her and Nebula. I love the whole like Nebula just going all out scene. They didn't even have a soundtrack for that part. It's just her like, ah!
It's like,
dude, when she hits the cave and like still keeps going, just like, I'm like, that is dedication right there. Did not care.
It's like, I'm trying to kill you. It's like, you could have just easily just taken this spaceship right here, gone to fight Thanos, and it would have been...
Now, the most messed up part of this movie is like the big ego twist when you find out that he actually killed Peter Quill's mom because he loved her so much. Yeah. He said that he had visited her 3 times and he knew if he came back again that he would never leave.
Yeah, and I like... This is where this series gets gangster, and again, I think it is the more adult version of any of the things that Marvel puts out. Because of the fact that, like, immediately he just pulls out a Han Solo's his blood.
Dude,
it was like,
but that's the thing. It's not just that he's under like the celestial spell and stuff like that. So that says something about his power and like the side of his humanity. Because that is one of my favorite moments ever. It's like straight Han Solo.
He's just like.
Well, think about that, because the Han Solo moment I respect ever because that's a god basically, like Darth Vader, and he boom didn't even. But dude, he instantly just snaps and starts blasting ego apart, which I absolutely love because that's a real reaction.
Yeah, that's a real reaction. You're going to react that way.
He didn't even ask questions.
He's like, she died in my arms.
Oh my god, absolutely heartbreaking with those scenes and things like that, and then him making the decision to like lose his powers to be able to kill his father and stuff like that, which I don't think he's going to lose. I think it's going to play more into Infinity War.
Well, I think it's also a couple of things where they set up for the larger is like, well, it's like because they brought up the Celestials.
Well, here's my. I just want to finish this thought real quick because I don't want to lose it. Here's my thing of why I think he's still gonna have power, because he had power beforehand. He was able to hold that Infinity Stone without ever visiting Ego or learning anything about that power or anything else like that. So that leads me to believe that he may still have something in it. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes with that. What were you saying?
Well, essentially, it's not. I think they're going into the bigger idea of some of the larger pieces of the larger figure beings or the celestial beings. So they talked about the Celestials. We'll probably get the Eternals at some point in time. But because he's like, Peter, because remember he talks to Peter, he says like, so am I a god? No, you're a god, little g. Yeah. And so that says...
Except on the days when I'm feeling humble like Drax.
You can say little g. But outside of this, I hope they bring out the one above all, because that's an interesting character that Marvel has really never talked about. But it's like the ultimate god of all their universes.
So great little cameos here. We got a nice little Howard the Duck bit there.
Yeah.
We got our Stan Lee, which we'll jump more into here in a minute. But just wrapping things up on the movie itself here, I think the most heartbreaking scene of this for me, though, is after Yondu's passing, when they have his funeral and stuff like that, and the Ravagers show up.
Yeah.
Because there's this big scene in the movie with Sylvester Stallone and Yondu where basically Yondu it gets exiled because they find out
he's been exiled.
Yeah, but he says this whole thing like the colors will never fly at your funeral, you'll never be acknowledged acknowledged as a Ravager again and all this stuff. It's a really heartbreaking scene, but then at the end, like after everyone's lost Yondu in the morning, and you start hearing it, like you just start hearing these little pops, and you're like, what the heck is that? And then like Rocket looks up, and you see it, and it's all the Ravager faction showing up on Sylvester Stallone's back, and then when they fire off the colors for him, like dude, it was one of the most heartbreaking moments for me, because it's like, and then Sean Gunn's reaction, Kraglin's reaction when he sees it out the window, he just starts like screaming because it's like they're vindicated. Absolutely incredible. Very great movie. It hit on a lot of punches for me. I give it overall an 8 out of 10. I mean, one of the great things here is 5 post-credit scenes, which I think might screw us, because I think that's like, if you got away with that now, I think that you might start seeing it more and more often.
No, well, for this one, I think
two of them really were the only ones that
two of them were ones that met. Well, even outside of that, there was stuff hidden in the credits, which we will certainly talk about after.
And it just got published on comicbook.com like an hour ago about Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, so it's, if you did not see that, Hella's character,
no one's talking about that yet.
Kate Blanchett's character Hella appears in the credits dancing, and so does Jeff Goldblum.
But Hella appears at Yondu's funeral. That's the crazier part. Like when they're all saying that, dude, I was tapped. You didn't see that? So when they're all saying goodbye, when the Ravagers all show up, it goes like Sylvester Stallone shows him, shows Ving Rhames, shows him, shows the metal dude, and then it shows Hella, and she goes, Yondu Udanta, may you rest forever, and like steps up there, and that's why
I thought that was Michelle Yeoh.
No, that's Hella, and the reason why I think that confirms that she's Death. Because she would greet him like an old friend. So I really, because
now I have to go see that movie.
Well, there's the rumors for Thor that she's actually Death. That Hela is Death. And everyone knows Thanos' relationship with Death in this movie. But they would explain why she would be there for Yondu as well.
Well, I thought that was Michelle Yeoh's character, because she was talking about that Alita. Because I'm pretty sure that was Michelle Yeoh. But
no, Hela's definitely there at the end. It's absolutely Kate Blanchett, because that's one of the moments I love the most. But getting to see them dancing in the credits and stuff like that. But I want to get into a couple of the post-credit scenes here. They're all really cool. 2 really affect the MCU going forward. 3 were just basically fan service. I mean, you get the one scene with Kraglin learning to use Yondu's fin, which I think was really cool.
It's Drax.
By the way, one of my favorite lines in the movie. You look like Mary Poppins. Is Mary Poppins cool? Yeah, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. But just seeing that and stabbing Drax and just screaming as he runs away. Hilarious. Next one you got after that, though, was the real one that I think is like the real after credit scene. That's Aisha just creating Adam Warlock. Like just the simple line like, I shall call him Adam. Yeah. And then you see the pod and it flashes out. That's absolutely huge.
Which James Gunn admitted that they had the pod in the first movie the collector, and they said that was a mistake, but this is the real one. Yeah. So
absolutely can't wait for that going forward. The third one we got was the teenage Groot, which was absolutely adorable. And I love that Star-Lord can understand him now. So it's going to be fun to see how that goes with the dynamic of the team. Last one that we got after that, I'm trying to think before the Stan Lee one. I have no clue what it was. It can't be important.
The Sylvester.
Oh, it's the original Guardians of the Galaxy team. Yeah, so it's Sylvester Stallone, Ving Rhames. They all assemble, and it's like, let's go out and steal some stuff. So it's basically them setting up that team. But then the last one confirms a fan theory that has been talked about for like 10 years that Stan Lee is one of the Watchers.
Well, it's Agent of the Watchers.
Just associated with the Watchers.
It's like I've got more stories.
That's absolutely. But just seeing them and actually seeing a Watcher in an MCU screen lost my mind. But absolutely incredible of seeing him there. And like, what do you think of that? Because that's such a cool way to tie all his cameos.
It is, and it's going to be interesting because especially with Thor Ragnarok coming up, man, I cannot wait to see what happens. I'm glad that they're tying that in because Stan Lee's certainly getting long in the tooth, and I wanted that character, but at the same time, I wonder. It makes me have so many questions for the future.
It'll be interesting to see what they do going forward with these movies, but I think Guardians of the Galaxy is absolutely a serviceable sequel, far better than a lot of the sequels that have come out in the Marvel Universe before it. So
this is where, as I said, I cannot stress enough that the characters in these films, because of the fact that before
it's all about team building in these.
Well, it's not even just about team building. Somewhere along the lines that James Gunn got the freedom to do something with his characters that Josh Whedon never got to do. Not to say they didn't, but they had to kind of stick with kind of cookie cutter superhero characters. And we didn't really see, we didn't see those characters change, particularly Captain America, Black Widow, until Civil War. And I'm sorry, until Winter Soldier, and then we really saw their change in Civil War last year.
By the way, I didn't realize we get Black Panther before Infinity War.
Yeah, we do.
We get Thor in November, Black Panther in February. Is that my? Can we get the Black's opinion there? Is it racist to release Black Panther in Black History Month?
I am conflicted about it, but if the whole thing is this: if they end it well, it'll be given the cast and the people that they have for this.
This is going to be a movie unlike anything we've seen in Marvel before because it's not an origin story.
No. It's an established character.
Which they've never done that with it. Think about that. Like, Spider-Man will be the first one, technically, if you really want to go that. But Spider-Man is a weird timeline because it takes place before and after Civil War. So it's kind of an origin.
Well, it will start out with that, but we'll see what happens. I'm certainly waiting for the Homecoming and seeing where they go from there.
But Black Panther is a legit, he's Black Panther.
He's legit, and I was a little conflicted about the fact that it was coming out Black History Month because
I just feel like that's just
it's slight pandering. It's just it's slight pandering, and you may be asking for a little bit of trouble, but because there's somebody out there gonna be like, I don't like this, and but moving forward, I want to say if they end that movie well, and it leads you to want to go see Infinity War, good job.
That's what I want from Thor and Black Panther. I just don't want here's just a couple movies to get you to Infinity War. Start putting some detail, especially with Thor. You got to really get some more into the cosmic side
that's why I thought it was interesting when we were talking about the credits, post-credit scene to Guardians, and I think I brought it up a few episodes ago on the podcast. We were talking about the fact that look at how Guardians started, and then look at how we got the Thor Ragnarok theme going. And so I feel that they're bridging, it's Taika Waititi and
I love
James Gunn. And I feel like Taika Waititi and James Gunn kind of had this conversation because it has similar looks to it.
Absolutely.
It has similar looks to it and
a similar comedic tone.
But I feel like, they're drawing that line saying you need to tune into what's going to happen in Thor Ragnarok.
It's like it's two sides of a bridge. They're all right, guys, time to start actually.
Yeah, we're gonna say here's where we bridge this because I'm pretty sure outside of the Doctor Strange, we're probably gonna get a Guardians of the Galaxy because he has to get back to Earth.
No, we're absolutely. They've already confirmed the Guardians 3 and James Gunn's returning to write and
No, not Thor. I'm talking about Thor. There has to be a Guardians tie-in in there. I know that you tend to not do this, but this is so cosmic. And the fact of the matter, they had Jeff Goldblum in the post credits. I did see Cate Blanchett's character doing the dancing in the post credit scene.
Just quick Jeff Goldblum news, which we didn't talk about. Did you hear about him being cast to return in Jurassic World 2? Yeah, he's back as Dr. Ian Malcolm, dude, with Chris Pratt and everything else like that.
Okay.
Yeah, come on. You're not going to see... Jurassic World was incredible.
That's going to be funny.
Add him back into that fold?
That's going to be funny.
I can't wait for it. Jeff Goldblum's one of those dudes I'll ride or die for. So
it's because he's a good character. I mean, he's one of those great... He is a great actor throughout his entire career.
Brundlefly.
But you're gonna get this guy in this film where bridging that gap between, because also the reason why I bring that up is because the way that the music is. Music plays a huge role in Guardians.
The Zune! Oh my God, we didn't even talk about the Zune. That's Volume 3. This is what everyone on Earth is listening to now.
It's like
300 songs.
It's like 300 songs. It's got Cat Stevens, and it's like, really?
Dude, which that scene was adorable of him listening to it with Groot. It was basically the new father and son relationship. So absolutely incredible. But yeah, I mean, just wrapping things up here. A great movie. Really looking forward to some of the future stuff in the MCU here. Gives me high hopes for Thor. Because it's if you can make a straight Marvel comedy like this now, which is really what this is. It's got these little moments of heart, but it's a comedy.
It's hard, but it's an adult.
It never feels like the stakes are too big.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean this. It keeps everything balanced. It manages to balance comedy. It manages to balance action. It also doesn't treat the audience like they're kids. I mean, Baby Groot is there, but the fact that there's huge amounts of swearing. On both sides of things, even when they're not using swearing, They could be using things. It's
If the thing between my legs had a hand on it, I guarantee you I would have landed this ship. Little things like that.
But it's like little things like that, or it's like the Drax's penis humor. It's like,
you need to find a woman who is pathetic. Like you. Just the little things like that. Absolutely hilarious.
So it's like you're sitting here like, oh, that interaction with Drax and Kurt Russell. It's like, yeah, so do you have...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean raccoon. I meant trash panda. Is that better? It's worse. It's so much worse.
So, so it's stuff like that where the stakes are high, but they somehow find the right balance with this film that they don't find in other Marvel movies.
That's a big thing. Like it just works. Like it's just something about this group of characters. And I think it works way more than the Avengers. Well, not even close. Like as far as a team that I care more about, every member of the team.
Well, and this is where I said they didn't realize that the Russos, it's based on the directors and who you have. So I don't think Josh Whedon helped build a lot of the first build those first two films, but I don't.
It's the actors too, though. I mean,
no, I know, you're talking about you're talking about Chris Evans, who's I've seen him in lots of stuff. Snowpiercer. Exactly. Snowpiercer.
That dude can act.
He can act. Like he's been in things where he can act. Scarlett Johansson's no slouch.
But Jeremy Renner, he's great in other stuff. But I'm telling you right now. So if you're watching a movie, who are you going to care more about dying? Hawkeye or Rocket Raccoon? Black Widow or?
Well, no, and I think that's the idea where they really need to start building that. I started caring more about Cap and his character. Like we can talk about that first movie. Nobody cared about him or Thor in those first two films. They did not care. I thought in Winter Soldier, I cared more about Cap's character and Black Widow's character, and they carried those issues over into Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens when you have the continuity directors. Once the Russos got Cap, they started doing incredible things with it. Once Gunn got Guardians, he's doing incredible things with it. But I think something can be learned from Gunn at the way that he's made you care about an entire team. There's not a single member of that crew that doesn't have.
And I think that's what you're gonna. And I think that's what you're gonna get with. I think that's what you're gonna get with Spider-Man, because they got hold of Spider-Man and they made me in a half an hour.
Dude, in a
they made me care about Peter Parker and his powers
because he's finally a kid.
Yeah.
It's finally the Spider-Man
and
that we've
they've ever made me. Then Sony has ever made me feel about the Amazing Spider-Man, the first trilogy of Spider-Man. They made me care about this character within a certain period of time, and I think Marvel is starting to get that. With their characters, it's like we gotta, it's like you can't just go cookie cutter Cap.
I was thinking about this and I actually figured it out. I know why the Marvel Spider-Man is appealing so much to me. It's not just that he's a kid anymore. They finally brought one of the pivotal characteristics to Spider-Man just in that 20 minutes in Civil War, the insecurity and the unsureness of I don't know that I can be this hero, but everything about me wants to be. It's something that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield never got. There was the cockiness, there's the dopey in love, like pining from it, but there was never that I'm not sure if I can be this hero, but everything about me wants to
absolutely
be.
And that you get that with and somehow they have not managed, they have managed to continue that into Guardians. And so when we get to, they took that, and when we first saw the first Guardian movie, I think they realized it's like we need to make our characters more human, and so we need to. So they started that in Winter Soldier. They made it happen a little, at least with two characters in Age of Ultron, because we learned about Cap.
Iron Man 3, they really did it with Robert Downey Jr.
Well, like, they did,
but the PTSD, like
they made you care about that, but it didn't, and that formulates some of Tony, but. Even now, but they didn't make me care about Tony.
Right.
Like I really didn't, care about Tony's attitude until Civil War. I didn't care about Cap, and to really, even though they had built that, didn't care about Cap until Civil War.
I still don't care about it.
They made me care about some of these characters. Now they need to take that over. Outside of the best thing that they did with Civil War was give us what you said about Spider-Man. They made me feel Peter Parker. They really did, and I think in a half an hour.
Yeah, because you can get Spider-Man. You can throw a suit on anybody, and you can get Spider-Man. They've never nailed Peter Parker until now.
Yeah, and they've never nailed that particular aspect of it, the insecurity of him. They've either had the wisecracking or the scientific, the nerdy aspects of him. They've never hit who Peter Parker's character really is.
It's like the pie chart almost. It's like, they've gotten certain aspects in here and there, but they've never come together.
And now they've hit that with Tom Holland.
Dude, that trailer is my favorite superhero movie trailer ever. Like,
and we'll get to see it in a few months
on my birthday. Can't wait.
We'll get to see it in a few months. But to wrap up what we saw about Guardians, I'm not going to call it, I was like 7.5. I think they went a little too overboard with the Baby Groot stuff. But at the same time, even Baby Groot you learned about, got a better idea of Baby Groot character and learned about a lot of the characters. And I enjoyed the film thoroughly, especially in the 4D, because it was just like, you're like thrown in there. But anything else you want to say?
Just that I think Mantis is a lot more powerful than it's going to come into play, because the way that she puts Ego down, like when they're going there, that's a Celestial. Yeah. And she just put him down like at his angriest, like Hulk level anger. So I think that might come into play in future movies. I thought that was a really cool little niff on her. A character that I didn't think I was going to care at all about, that I came out loving.
Yeah.
So
it's like,
she just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret. Like,
do me.
Absolutely.
This is humor.
I have never found such humor. Absolutely incredible. So get out, see Guardians, see it in 3D if you can. The visuals are absolutely incredible on this movie. James Gunn delivers another great sequel. So wrapping things up for this week's episode of the Get Your Geek On podcast. I've been Chuck KIWACZ.
I'm Robert Dokes.
Have a week.